The thyroid gland is located in the neck on the anterior and posterior aspects around the trachea. So if you're looking here, you can see it's kind of butterfly shape. That is going to be the thyroid gland from the anterior view. While down here, you can see it's kind of poking around the posterior a little bit. It doesn't wrap all the way around, but definitely can see some posterior aspects of the thyroid gland. Now, you'll notice that there's also the parathyroid gland nestled in there, but we'll get to that later. We're going to focus on the thyroid gland first. So if you look at the histology, the thyroid gland is made up of all of these different follicles. So each circle is a follicle, a thyroid follicle. And that's kind of a giveaway or a dead giveaway for what the thyroid tissue looks like. Now, these follicles, all this fluid inside, that is colloid. The fluid, the colloid, is filling the space called the lumen. So the whole thing is the follicle. The space inside the lumen is filled with the colloid. Kind of think of a glass. If the actual cells on the outside were the rim of the glass, the space inside that's empty is the lumen. Pour water in, the water is the colloid. So each one of these cells on the outside here, all those cells around the outside of these follicles, those are going to be the follicular cells. Now, these follicular cells are what are going to help produce the thyroid hormone. But in between, these cells that are in between the follicles, those are known as parafollicular cells. They're in between the follicles. And those parafollicular cells are producing the hormone calcitonin. So you have two different main hormones here. We have our thyroid hormones as well as calcitonin, both being produced by cells in the thyroid gland. All right, but I said two hormones. In reality, it's a little more than that because your thyroid hormone, TH, is actually two different hormones, T3 and T4. Now, T4 is thyroxine. It's going to be 2 tyrosine molecules and 4 iodine molecules. While T3 is triiodothyronine, that T3 is again 2 tyrosine molecules, but now the 3 part is 3 iodine molecules. So you have T3 and T4. If you want to use thyroxine and triiodothyronine, feel free. T3 and T4 is a lot easier. So what does the thyroid hormone do, which is both those together, T3 and T4? They're dealing with metabolism. Now, metabolism is every chemical reaction in your body. So it's kind of an important thing. That means these thyroid hormones have receptors for almost every single cell in your body. Now, it's meant to increase your metabolic rate. Sure, that makes sense. You're controlling metabolism. But that also then increases heat production. Because a lot of the heat of your body, to keep your body your temperature, that's being produced because of metabolism that's occurring in your body. So known as the calorific effect. That calorific effect is heat production. You're burning calories to make heat. But then carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, all are being controlled as far as their metabolic processes as well. Now sure, carbohydrates, think about glucose, give you energy, but use lipids. Sometimes you even use proteins as energy sources. All of that, the thyroid hormone is helping to control. So a whole bunch of systems also interact with the thyroid hormone. The nervous system is going to have the thyroid hormone dealing with normal development throughout childhood and then normal functionality the rest of your life. So you're looking at development and function of the nervous system. If you don't have adequate thyroid hormone levels throughout, the nervous system can't develop or function properly. Cardiovascular system, normal heart functionality. Again, metabolism, energy, kind of important. Muscular system, looking at normal development and function. Skeletal system, growth and maturation of the skeletal tissue. You say, hold on, they're bones. Yes, but the bones, remember, are living tissues. That's the osseous tissue. Digestive system, normal motility and tone. Motility and tone. Your digestive system is filled with muscle, mostly smooth, but at the ends a little bit of skeletal. You must maintain a certain muscle tone throughout your intestines, your stomach, to make sure your food is being passed through the process and everything's working. That's motility, moving your food through. Muscle tone, keeping it in a certain shape. Reproductive system, looking at the ability for lactation in females. So we're looking at some, again, production here, dealing with thyroid hormone. Integumentary system, looking at your skin, hydration, and the secretory function of the different parts of the skin. So again, thyroid hormone, system after system after system, is very, very important. So let's look in the production of thyroid hormone, T3 and T4. Now this image has a lot to it, so I'm going to blow up full screen here. We'll start with orientation. You can see the blood is over here on the one side. All that blood is where you're getting your iodine. It's where you're going to distribute your T3 and T4. So the first things first, number one up top here. So you're looking at the thyroid globulin is synthesized. We're going through the rough ER, we're going through the Golgi apparatus. So we're using the cellular machinery to produce. From there, you're going to leave the follicular cell. Now this whole thing is one follicular cell. You'll then take that molecule, leave here, and if you notice, you're expelling the tyrosines. Remember, tyrosine is the backbone here. So those tyrosine molecules are expelled into the lumen, into that colloid. Once in the colloid, you're going to have those tyrosine molecules and the iodine molecules combining. That iodine, if you follow the arrow here, came from the blood right through the follicular cell and into the colloid. The iodine really doesn't have anything to do in the actual cell, just a way of getting to the actual colloid. Now, as they're combining, you'll notice the combinations here. A tyrosine and 2 iodine molecules, or a tyrosine and 1 iodine molecule. You're saying, hold on, T3 and T4. We have to combine. What'll end up happening is, by the time it's being brought back into the cell, the tyrosine molecules have combined together. So the 2 tyrosine molecules combine, therefore you have 2 tyrosine and 3 iodine, or 2 tyrosine and 4 iodine. They're then packaged. The lysosomes will clean up the colloid, kind of get rid of any remnants, and make sure that all that's being secreted is T3 and T4 into the bloodstream. And therefore now T3 and T4 in the blood, they're traveling from head to foot looking for receptors. That's the process of producing the T3 and T4 molecules. So you're producing T3 and T4 here from the follicular cell into the colloid, back to the follicular cell, and out to the blood. But transportation, regulation, you have to have control here. You can't just keep producing as much thyroid hormone as possible. Your metabolism will go berserk. You have to maintain homeostatic levels. So I'll first start here. You're looking at target receptors. But T3 is 10 times more active than T4. So as we're going through here, they both are going to bind into these thyroxine binding globulins. So thyroxine binding globulins. Now notice that 99%. That's pretty much all of them. The question is why? Why can't T3 and T4 just simply float free throughout the blood? Remember, thyroid hormone might be an amino acid hormone, but it's lipid soluble. Your blood is mostly water. These things are lipid soluble. That doesn't really mix very well. So they have these thyroxine binding globulins, which act like chaperones that carry them throughout the blood. Now, a lot of times your peripheral tissue, basically where they're going, is converting T4 to T3. Remember, T3 is 10 times more active, it's more functional. So it's better off to do that. So again, thyroid hormone is being transported based on this carrier globulin. All right, so here's what we have, and I'll throw this one up full screen also. First off, your metabolic rate, T3, T4, how much in the blood? If there's not enough, so if we're in low levels of T3 or T4, then the hypothalamus is going to be stimulated. Hypothalamus releases TRH. Remember, that's a releasing hormone. It heads down to the anterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary then is stimulated to release TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. The thyroid stimulating hormone then heads down to the thyroid gland itself. The thyroid gland then produces the thyroid hormones, T3 and T4. So now those effects, you're releasing T3 and T4 now into the blood. That T3 and T4 in the blood are going to have an increased basal metabolic rate. You're increasing the metabolism of your body cells. Therefore, you're also increasing the temperature. That's why when you exercise, think about it, your metabolism's increasing, your body's using more energy, your body temperature goes up, partly because of this thyroid hormone here. Well, once those T3 levels and T4 levels get high enough, they either are maintaining the homeostasis or they're going a little bit too high. You have this negative feedback now. The negative feedback is saying, hey, you know what? There's enough T3 and T4 out there. Let's stop releasing TRH. Let's stop releasing TSH. So therefore, you cut back, and now everything is stopping production, allowing what's in the blood to simply keep circulating, but not making anything new to come out. So you have all this negative feedback that's balancing the homeostatic levels of your T3 and T4 in the blood. So how do we regulate? We've gone through transportation, we've gone through a little regulation. Remember, we have TRH, thyrotropin releasing hormone. That's the key. But, and here's a very big but, it can be overcome. If there is pregnancy or a lot of exposure to cold. We're not talking, oh, I'm a little cool, let's put on a sweatshirt. I'm talking you're in a t-shirt and shorts and you're outside and it's 30 degrees out. And you've been there for a half hour. So when you really, really get cold, this can be overridden. So now you're overriding this because your body's trying to protect itself, trying to help the situation that's going on. In the case of pregnancy, basically that's two individuals there while you're pregnant. Need more metabolism, more energy. Exposure to cold and a lot of cold, you can increase metabolism to increase body temperature. So a way of trying to help your body out to make sure you're trying to stay as safe as possible. All right, enough with the thyroid hormones. There is a second hormone also coming out of the thyroid gland. That's calcitonin. Calcitonin, remember, comes out of the parafollicular cells, the ones in between the follicles. Now, come on. Their function inhibits osteoclast activity. All right, remember back to the skeletal system. Osteoclasts break down the bone matrix. That means they release calcium. If you inhibit osteoclasts, the calcium stays in the bones. You're not putting it back in the blood. That means calcitonin is the antagonist to the parathyroid hormone. Because calcitonin keeps the calcium in the bones, parathyroid hormone, we'll get to that later, brings the calcium out of the bones. So the thyroid gland, looking at the thyroid hormones as well as calcitonin. So T3, T4, and calcitonin, all coming from the thyroid gland.